Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Top 10 players for this Auburn program heading into 2024. And Dill, making this list, you kind of figured out exactly why Auburn brought in Hugh Freeze to run this program. The overhaul of talent that you've seen take place for this Auburn program over the last 18 months, you just have to give Hugh Freeze so much credit. And you start making this top 10 list, you're leaving out a lot of really good players, but I think most importantly, a lot of young talent on this team. And that's something we've talked about a lot over the last couple of months is this Auburn team is much improved heading into 2024. Nobody is really going to argue that, but you start taking a look at 2025 and in 2026 with the amount of young talent this team has on its team. This is going to be a team that's competing for SEC titles over the next couple of years. Fired up to get into this list. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys, to the Auburn fans. We always say since Hugh Freeze has taken over this program, it has been an absolute blast to talk about this team on the recruiting trail, in the transfer portal, and the amount of support you guys have shown the fellas, all the War Eagles in the comment section. That stuff means the world to the boys. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly for the Auburn fans, let it fly in the comment section. We left a lot of good players off this list that we might be sleeping on. Let us know. Drop your top 10 in the comment section. We'll chop it up. And Dill, getting into this list, we immediately cheated. And we normally kind of incorporated a my guys ranking where you're not going to put these guys in the top 10, but you wanted to talk about them. And I just cheated and listed a bunch of true freshmen that I think are going to be contributors for this Auburn program. I'll give you the T-box here, talking about true freshmen that could really be top 10 players for this Auburn program. I'll kind of give you the T-box here.
Yeah, I know. And it's hard to obviously put freshmen in the top 10 because you just don't totally know what they're going to be in college. But watching Cam Coleman in the spring game, obviously going back through what he was in high school,
you kind of know.
Like he's pretty confident that he's going to be a top 10 player in this Auburn team. Perry Thompson, obviously very talented. Wish we did see him in the spring, obviously coming in later. But I'm kind of interested to see what Amaris Williams and Jamonte Waller do because I think they're going to play a lot. Just by the nature, you see Auburn still trying to build up the depth through their defensive line in that edge spot. I think those two are going to get their shot, and Amaris Williams especially. I mean, he is athletically seems very much ready to play.
Yeah, so Cam Coleman, I'm probably going to be a top 5 player for this Auburn team. Like, it's hard to really project him not to be a top 5 player. Auburn fans know about him. Now, Amaris Williams is kind of my guy, and for the Auburn fans who've been rocking with the fellas during our recruiting trail talks, I think Amaris Williams is going to be a day one contributor for this Auburn program. So I look at Cam Coleman and Amaris Williams, two guys that I think certainly could be top 10 players for this program. Now, getting into our top 10, let's start with number 10, and we're going to go to Jaron Thompson. This was a transfer portal addition that I just think flew under the radar for this Auburn program. You look at what Auburn needed to do heading into 2024, you lost a lot of experience and some damn good football players in the back end of this Auburn defense. What better way to replace all that production than going to Texas and grabbing a safety in Jaron Thompson, who not only has a ton of experience, having played over 2,000 snaps during his career, extremely productive during his career, 176 tackles, 5 interceptions, 18 pass breakups, but most importantly, he's extremely versatile. This is a guy that can play that free safety role, can play in that box, be extremely physical in the run game, and then also match up in man coverage as a nickel defender as well. When you have an experienced player with that much versatility and you start talking about how are we going to replace all of that NFL production that's moving on to the NFL, Jaron Thompson, I thought, was a massive transfer portal addition for Hugh Freeze and his coaching staff.
Yeah, I thought especially last year for Texas, especially his ability to read quarterback size, jump routes, make those big plays, and get his hands on footballs. I thought those are the type of plays that can change a game. Obviously, you go to that Alabama game for Texas, that type of play that he makes and takes that ball away, that changes the football game. That's probably a big part of why Texas won it. And yeah, Auburn, you probably just looking for more guys to make those type of plays. I think Jaron Thompson's instincts will allow him to do that at Auburn.
Yeah, you look at making those game-changing plays. The Jaron Thompson can be a guy in the back end that certainly can do that. Going to number 9, and I have Dylan Wade at number 9, and I don't feel great about it. Like, he was so good for Auburn last year. Probably should be a little bit higher on this list. I think it speaks to how talented this Auburn team is heading into 2024. Dylan Wade at left tackle last year, not only extremely reliable, started every single game at left tackle for Auburn, was extremely good as well. I mean, 422 pass pro opportunities, 2 sacks, 11 quarterback hurries. Now, kicking into guard going into 2024, I think we both agree that is probably his optimal position. And if you're telling me Dylan Wade was quote unquote playing out of position, playing left tackle in the SEC, how good he looked, I'm kind of sitting here saying, what is Dylan Wade going to look like playing guard for this Auburn program heading into the 2024 year?
And especially because the only issues he had probably at left tackle is when he faced those elite passers. I thought against Dallas Turner in that Alabama game, obviously struggled a little bit to deal with him. And again, maybe not the prototypical size length kind of question you have for the tackle, but just his ability to move guys off the line of scrimmage, play with good leverage, and especially be able to play and work up to the second level and pick up moving targets. Such a big part of what Hugh Freeze is going to want to do in that run game. I think he's going to be an elite guard for Auburn. I think he certainly deserves to be in this
Looking at an all-SEC guard, no doubt about it for Auburn. Number 8, Eugene Asante. And this was a really difficult spot to kind of where you wanted to place him. My take on Eugene Asante is one, I mean, first on the team with 86 tackles, third on the team in run stops, second on the team in quarterback hurries. The production kind of speaks for itself. And you go into the film of Eugene Asante, you saw some extremely bright moments where you said that looks like one of the best linebackers that you see across the country. But I think a lot of Auburn fans kind of share this sentiment, if you will. The consistency wasn't always there for Eugene Asante. So I think we're sitting here saying if Eugene Asante can put kind of all those flashes together and kind of maintain that consistency, you are looking at one of the better linebackers, not only in the SEC, but in the country. And if he can become more consistent, it's going to be a difference maker for this Auburn defense in 2024.
Yeah, I think the big part is him being able to work a little bit in condensed areas, pick through traffic a little bit quicker, because in the open space in there, he's elite.
No one's better.
There's no better linebacker probably in the country at chasing guys down, making plays there. But again, being able to pick through traffic a little bit, work in the box a little bit more effectively. I'm not going to lie, if I had final cut on this list, which I didn't, and I'm really interested to hear what Auburn fans think, I think Austin Keys versus Eugene Asante, who's better, who's going to have a better year. I think that's really, really tight. The more I watch Austin Keys play and not just like think about the highlights that I've seen from Eugene Asante, I thought Austin Keys had a great year. I mean, his ability to rush the passer is pretty solid, can work through, go sideline to sideline. I'm really interested to see who kind of takes control of that room and is the.
You noted something that I am extremely fired up about, and that is how these linebackers get after the passer, right? Austin Keys certainly did it. You look at Eugene Asante, he certainly did it with 16 quarterback hurries. And then you look at DJ Durkin and what he did at Texas A&M, using those linebackers as pass rushers. DJ Durkin's going to get so creative in terms of how he uses those linebackers in those third and long situations. I think it's a perfect match. Like the personnel combined with how DJ Durkin wants to coach it. I think you have to be fired up about the linebacker core for this Auburn program. Going to number 7, Rivaldo Fairweather. This was a guy that led this team in catches, receiving yards, touchdowns. Yes, they had a little bit to do with the wide receiver play, not having those difference makers, but you make no mistake about it. Rivaldo Fairweather was one of the best tight ends in the SEC last year. And I think what really stands out for me is, there are so many ways that you can incorporate Rivaldo Fairweather into an offense, whether it's using that big fluid frame, work in the middle of the field, kind of attacking those seams, or just saying, hey, we're going to get it out to the flat and let you operate as a ball carrier as well. This is a true weapon at that tight end position. You can't say that for many tight ends on a lot of different Power 5 programs. You combine that with how Hugh Freeze wants to run this offense. Rivaldo Fairweather, you make no mistake about it, probably not going to lead the team in receiving yards because they got some real good wide receivers that we're going to talk about. But I think Rivaldo Fairweather is going to have a year for Auburn in 2024.
Yeah, agreed. Just a totally dynamic tight end, can play out in the boundary, can play in the slot, can play in line, just play everywhere. Fluid enough to run good routes and obviously big enough to be able to work those seams and make contested catches. There's just not many tight ends who can kind of do everything the way he does it.
Matchup nightmare. And I think one other thing, we can go back to this and talk about it. 71% completion percentage when targeted. That is a massive number when I'm evaluating tight ends. Are you a quarterback-friendly pass catcher at that tight end role? Rivaldo Fairweather was certainly that kind of guy for Peyton Thorne last year. Going to number 6, and you guys already saw it, and it's my guy Connor Liu. Now, For the people who've been listening for a long time, they know I'm fired up about Connor Lew, and it is so rare. I feel like people kind of fail to appreciate what it looks like for true freshmen to go into the conference like the SEC and, for larger words, like dominate as a true freshman at that center position. Was phenomenal in pass pro. 0 sacks, 6 quarterback hurries, and 228 pass pro opportunities. Very similar to what you said with Dylan Wade. He is not only very good in pass pro, he's elite at working to the second level. And you take a look at what Hugh Freeze wants this rushing attack to look like. You need your interior offensive linemen to go be fluid athletes and pick up linebackers at the second level. Connor Lew is a guy that certainly can do that. Going into year 2, I think you're looking at one of the better centers in the SEC, potentially even in the country.
Even just trying to project him forward, if you kind of go compare how he played against Ole Miss to Alabama, I think that type of progression he made over the season is huge. Because, I mean, when you play in Alabama, you're talking one of the better defensive fronts, especially in that interior, in all the country last year. Otis, Keenan, Smith. I mean, those guys are really, really good players. I thought the way he physically handled them, very impressive. Being able to just play that position at a high level against really, really good players and just making that progression where, I mean, he was solid against Ole Miss, but thought he looked better towards the end, especially against Alabama. And again, if he continues to make that type of progress in his career, he'll be a big
He was so good against Alabama, and that was one of the better front sevens that you saw in the country. Going up to our top 5, let's talk about Jarquez Hunter, who did a couple of things that I really appreciate from Jarquez Hunter. One, he can hit the explosive play. Like, we all know that. We see the highlights. We see that every Saturday. Down in, down out, I don't think he gets enough appreciation. A guy that's 4 yards per carry after contact. There are a lot of running backs in the country that are just averaging 4 yards per carry purely. He's doing that after contact. His ability to change a 2nd and 8 into a 2nd and 6, fall forward, be very physical with contact, change a 3rd and 5 into a 3rd and 3, be a very, kind of set quarterbacks up for those quarterback-friendly down and distances. And when you have a running back that can hit the big play, make those game-changing plays, but also down and down out, be just an extremely efficient runner that can deal with contact, that's when you're talking about special running backs. Jarquez Hunter potentially a little bit low coming in at 5. One of the better running backs in the SEC in my mind.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think just that ability to, yes, run the ball physically, but then be able to be one of the primary generators of explosive plays from last year, very valuable to that team. You obviously shouldered a big load, played a lot. Really, really good season for him.
Let's talk about another one of my guys, and that's Keandre Lambert-Smith. I thought was one of the better wide receivers that was available in the transfer portal. The Auburn fans have heard me say this, so we don't need to harp on it. This is a guy that probably is playing in the NFL. Had he had competent quarterback play in 2023, he was the go-to guy in that Penn State offense. And I think what really stands out to me about Keandre Lambert-Smith is, one, that was a young wide receiver room that Auburn was going to have. You inject a guy in Keandre Lambert-Smith who's been as productive and is as experienced as Keandre Lambert-Smith is. I think that was a massive addition purely from an experience standpoint. But then you start talking about what he brings to this Auburn wide receiver room. You have a guy in Cam Coleman who is going to be one of the most physically gifted players every single time he steps onto the field. You look at Keandre Lambert-Smith, he's not as flashy as Cam Coleman, but his ability to run clean routes, create separation, operate after the catch, you're looking at a wide receiver that is one of the better wide receivers I thought available in the transfer portal, in a massive addition for this Auburn program heading into 2024.
And the big thing that stands out to me is what you mentioned, what he does after the catch, is how smooth he is from catch to run and accelerating and creating bigger plays. I mean, again, not the guy to go just down the field and make explosive plays like that, but really good working after the catch and can make plays in his own right doing that.
Going to number 3, Keldrick Falk. And another truth, but we talked about it at the jump, like the amount of young talent on this Auburn program, the amount of guys that are top 10 players that are going to be with this program for the next couple of years. Keldrick Falk is certainly one of those guys. And again, similar to how we talked about with Connor Lew, extremely rare to see true freshmen come in and hold up along the line of scrimmage in the SEC. Keldrick Falk was one of those guys. You're talking about a true freshman that was 2nd on the team in run stops, 3rd on the team in quarterback hurries. I think what really excites me about Keldrick Falk is, yes, he is a hammer against the run. He's long. He's got heavy hands. He knows how to disengage and get off blocks and make plays. What I'm most excited for is him taking that step as a pass rusher, because you saw him last year when he won in the pass rush. It was primarily just being a little bit of a better athlete than the guys that were trying to block him. But there wasn't much nuance to his pass rush game, which is to be expected from a true freshman. I mean, what happens when he starts to learn how to use those heavy hands a little bit better, use that length, kind of develop a deeper bag of pass rush moves? You're looking at a guy that I think can be an all-conference guy for this Auburn program as a pass rusher, but what he does in the run game, that's probably what really highlights him and what makes him a top 3 player on this Auburn program.
And when you talk about him getting better as a pass rusher, yes, sharpening the sword, definitely a big part, having a little bit more technique. But I think just inherently getting a little bit more explosive through his lower half, I think that's going to be huge. Because you look, I mean, when he gets his hands on guys really long, really strong in the upper body, and can put tackles kind of on skates a little bit, I just think he needs to be able to run through guys a little bit more. Collapse pockets, that's to me how, if he's going to really be a disruptive pass rusher, it's mostly going to be that, just given his physical profile. And I think, again, just getting a little bit stronger, playing a little bit stronger, more explosive, I think he'd be a real dangerous
and
weapon.
reason to believe that he improves in both those categories. Because, again, you're not talking about a guy that's going into a 6th year of college football where you kind of know what he is. This was a true freshman that's going to be in his first full offseason with this Auburn program. A lot of reason to believe that. And he takes that massive step going into year 2. Number 2, Bill, a guy that, so I'll let you take the wheel on this one, but a guy that I had originally, I think at number 7, and showing you the kind of outline here, and you're like, no, he has got to be moved up. Keontae Scott, I'll give you the T-box. How are we feeling about him coming in at 2?
No, I don't know how you can watch Auburn games and not think Keontae Scott's one of their top 5 players. I mean, just how many plays he was making, flying around the field, cleaning up for everyone else's mistakes at times. I mean, just again, being able to there's just no hole in what he does. Tackles really well, plays in coverage really well, has good instincts, and get his hands on the ball. I just don't know where his weakness is, and given that, I don't know how he can't be a top 5 player for Auburn.
So sticky. Now, you talk about a guy that just makes quarterback's job so hard. The throwing windows are so small when you want to go after a guy like Keontae Scott, a 53% completion percentage when targeted. Now, I think the question is, can he take all that production, all that good play at that nickel roll, put it together at the boundary? I don't have many questions because he's a physical cornerback. He can put hands on wide receivers. I'm really excited about him kicking out to the boundary. Again, you can use him in a lot of different ways. He can be one of the better nickel defenders that you see in the country. Certainly can hold up on the boundary. Going to number 1, and another one of just kind of our guys, and that's Jalen McLeod. And you talk about best pure pass rushers in the SEC and in the country. Jalen McLeod probably at that list. When it's 3rd and 7, and you say, hey, Jalen McLeod, big dog, pin your ears back, go get after the quarterback. His juice off the line of scrimmage, his flexibility and bend, he challenges tackles from an athletic standpoint just about as good as anybody in the country. You're looking at, and we always talk about this, who's your guy? When it's 3rd and long and you need to get off the field and you know that opposing team is throwing the football, do you have a guy that can win in the pass rush? I think it can be Jalen McLeod. Quite frankly, I think it was Jalen McLeod last year at a 17% pass rush win rate, led the team in quarterback hurries. I think he can even take another step going into 2024. Again, his 2nd year at the Power 5 level coming from App State. I'm fired up for this kid going into 2024.
Yeah, I feel like people sleep on him a little bit because, again, not that 6'5", 240 kind of guy. Obviously a little on the short side, but when you move the way he does, when you're as explosive as he is, obviously can challenge tackles in a variety of ways and very explosive running into guys, or running through guys, I should say. I mean, just a very well-developed pass rusher, and just has that explosive twitchiness that just not a lot of guys have. It's what you really need to be elite.
There's not many guys that we're sitting in preseason and say, that's a 10-plus sack kind of guy. I think we're both sitting here and saying Jalen McLeod can be that 10-sack kind of guy for this Auburn program. That'll do it. They left a lot of good players off this list. Kayan Lee left him off the list. Don't feel good about it. Philip Leedy coming from Indiana, one of my favorite transfer portal additions. Don't feel good about leaving him off the list, but I think he shows you how talented this Auburn program is heading into 2024. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, let it fly in the comment section. Drop your top 10. Drop some players that we might be sleeping on, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.